Yeah, I'll just give a quick welcome. I just wanted to thank TAEE for sponsoring this session. We had to break up their day a little bit, but we're happy to have Kiki and Brian here today to join us. So Kiki, Brian, we're going to pass it right over to you so you can maximize your time.
All right. Thank you, Dustin. Everybody should be seeing our sort of slide. So TAEE, the Texas Association for Environmental Education, is the state affiliate of the North American Association for Environmental Education, as well as being an affiliated organization with the Science Teachers Association of Texas, the same as ISEA is. And with this topic and state as vast as Texas is, we don't attempt to be the ultimate authority on environmental education. What we do, however, is promote and support environmental education by providing connections, communications, content, and certification. So today we'll get the hot air balloon view of what the Texas Certified Environmental Educator is. Then we'll do an activity together that could be the lesson portion of the TCEE portfolio and see how it would fit into that template. And lastly, we'll take a few minutes to think about the lessons you already do that could fill in that piece of your application. So I'm Kiki Corry, and I serve on the board of TAEE. I'm the Project Wild coordinator for Texas Parks and Wildlife, and I've been a formal and an informal educator, and now I coordinate Project Wild statewide.
And my name is Brian McDaniel. I'm the Director of Curriculum at the Outdoor Education Center at Camp Olympia. I am also on the board of the TAEE. I'm in charge of the East region. So if you guys live in East Texas, come talk to me after this. Also, I lead the TCEE. I'm in charge of the Texas Certified Environmental Educator. So we'll just jump right in. What is the TCEE? The Texas Certified Environmental Educator. It's issued by TAEE, the Texas Association for Environmental Education. And the certification, it provides credibility to the field. And we've kind of talked, TAEE has talked for a while, and I know you guys have obviously talked about this too. It's just a certification to provide a bit more credibility to what we do. Teachers have certifications, doctors, most professions have certifications that basically say I'm competent in what I'm doing, and I have this body of knowledge that I've gained through this certification that allows me to, in our situation, have the correct type of pedagogy, the correct environmental background knowledge. And so I think that this certification goes a long way in kind of providing a more professional feel and quality to our field. So I think that's why it's so important. And then to jump right into the purpose. So the purpose of the Texas Certified Environmental Educator program is to recognize an individual that demonstrates the competencies that an exemplary environmental educator should have based on recognized knowledge and skills. So perfect. Benefits of certification. Why you should get certified. It's a really good body of knowledge. You really will gain a lot of knowledge about the teaching of environmental education. You can list it as a professional document on your resume. I think it'll be a boost. And I think ideally I would like to get to a point where this is something that we really look for in our field for people that have the certification, that it really does represent credibility and a level of competency. That's something that we should all win in our field. I think it demonstrates your commitment to the EE profession. And I think it's also a part of a movement to get environmental education acknowledged in the state of Texas. I don't think it's any secret that Texas is not necessarily always at the forefront of environmental education and environmental awareness, but we have a big, amazing state. We have an incredible environmental ecosystems all over the state, different regions, and an incredible amount of people that really care about that and education. So I think that there's no reason that we can't make that a big part of the state of the Texas in the future. And I think it also, like I said earlier, enhances the credibility of the profession. So just kind of jump in a little bit about the history of environmental education. What do you know about environmental education? It really kind of started modern EE started really in the 70s. And kind of one of the big events was UNESCO, the frame where they kind of made the framework for a global framework for environmental education. That was what's called the Belgrade Charter, and it was in around 1975. So it's kind of this big proposed global framework where a bunch of people came together from multiple nations and really decided this is what kind of the bare bones of EE should look like. You know, we want to make this a thing, and we need to tackle environmental issues in the world moving forward. And so from that, you kind of have the Tbilisi Declaration, which is named after Tbilisi, Georgia, which is where the meeting was held. And it was in 1977. There was 265 delegates, and I believe like 65 representatives. It was a pretty big meeting. And they established, really, they kind of took what the framework for EE, and they established the role, objectives, and the characteristics of what good environmental education should look like. So then you kind of fast forward that into really the United States and Texas. And we go up into the future a little bit, and we have the NEETF, which is the National Environmental Education Training Foundation, which is a part of the NEEF, which is the National Environmental Education Foundation. A lot of acronyms there. But they are kind of integral in the role of environmental education and in our history, because in the late 90s and early 2000s, they issued a bunch of, or they had a group called Roper. The reports are called the Roper reports. And they did a bunch of surveys from the late 1990s and early 2000s. And basically what they found from the Roper reports is that Americans, our environmental background and knowledge is a lot worse than we think it is. But our desire to protect the environment and our desire to want environmental education to be incorporated into our society is very strong, which is kind of paradoxical in a way and ironic. But I think it's really cool because that's kind of where organizations like us step in. That gives us like a huge sense of purpose right there. We have this group of people that don't have the knowledge that they need, but they obviously want it, and in many ways realize that it's integral to a good future for our country and for the world. So I think that kind of, I like to know that background because it kind of inspires me a little bit to really do, push environmental education and get it out there, to realize that people really do want this kind of stuff, and that we fill this cool niche of providing them with the ability to improve their craft and get environmental awareness and education kind of out there to everybody. So the TCEE goals: increase environmental literacy, which we've just talked about. Promote best practices in environmental education teaching methods, establish the standards for professional excellence in environmental education, and then foster community leadership. And I wanted to touch for just a second on fostering community leadership. I think that that's a big, I touched earlier on Texas, not necessarily being at the forefront all the time, but I think that we have the people and the desire and, whether they're formal educators, informal educators, we have leaders in our communities. And I think that we need people from our communities to step up and really make that difference. I think waiting for big bodies of government or bureaucracies or whatever to get in and decide things for us, maybe this is our chance as individuals and people that really care about our causes to kind of take the standard and run with it. And I think, again, this is part of why TCEE is so important. It gives you a credibility. It kind of plugs you into a community, gives you a background of why, you believe the things that you believe. And I think that that's really empowering. And I think that we can all really make a difference with a Texas Certified Environmental Education, certification, and just that body of knowledge and that desire that we're showing. So the who, what, where, and why of the TCEE. So we're affiliate, and the TAEE is an affiliate of the NAAEE, and I'm really going through these acronyms today. But they have a set of guidelines for excellence in environmental education. And so when you're doing the portfolio, if you go down to the bottom, you can see where it says electronic portfolio-based certification, comprised of 7 sections. There's short activities, there's in-depth activities, and there's reflection activities in part B of the portfolio. So The portfolio itself is divided into four, it's an A, B, C, and D. So it's 4 sections. Section B will be where you'll look at the guidelines and you'll do some activities. You'll also talk about the Tbilisi Declaration, you'll work with the Belgrade Charter, and you will do a little bit with the Roper reports. So you actually will do a survey within the portfolio as part of your activities. So it's really a cool in-depth thing. But you'll see the guidelines of excellence, you'll learn about those. Once you complete your 7 sections from your 4 A, B, C, D, and E, you will have a valid 5-year certification. It's $150 to submit the application fee, and you can submit it at the June 1st, so at the new year. And then I think we're going to do it biannually, so it'll be June 31st, I believe, or June 31st or July 1st, I think is what we decided on for the biannual. And it's a pretty in-depth portfolio. So the average one that I grade is probably about 50 pages. So give yourself a couple of months. Like I was at a time in my life where I could really sit down and do it every night, and I did it. It took me about 2 months, and that was probably working 10 hours a week, 5 to 10 hours, maybe not 10 hours a week, 5 to 10 hours a week. Okay, so there is going to be a little bit of commitment, and I mean, you really are going to learn stuff. I think it's a very good portfolio and certification, but that it will be valid for 5 years or in the professional development. And so, sorry, Kiki, I'm running over my.
Sorry. Okay, so that was a big grand overview from the hot air balloon, and now let's get actually down into the mud to see what this is really about. So let's do a quick version of a wild activity as an example of a lesson you might include in your application. You're going to need paper and at least a pencil. Crayons, markers, stickers, glitter glue might also be fun, but a pencil and paper will do. So you might want to grab that real quick. And yeah. Now, we all know that fish come in a wide variety of colors and shapes and sizes. But surely this is not due to the whims of fashion, right? Think for a moment about how those various characteristics might give them, individually and as a species, an advantage to survive and thrive. So this is what we're going to be thinking about today in Fashion of Fish, which is from Aquatic Wild. So a fish's color helps it blend into its habitat. The albacore living in the open waters is light on the bottom, so it blends with the bright sky when viewed from below. The catfish are dark on top, making it hard to see looking down into the depths where it hangs out. The mottled pattern of the crappie blends with murky waters. Horizontal and vertical stripes blend with the particular vegetation in the habitat. So now take a moment to jot down one of those coloration patterns. Okay, so now let's look at the fish's shape. A fish's shape helps it move around and function in its ecosystem. The catfish's flat belly allows it to skim along the bottom. The wahoo, with its torpedo shape, can whiz through the water, a speedy predator. Halibut, sole, and flounder spend their days settled on the sandy bottom, invisible to both predator and prey. The butterfish looks big from the side, but a quick 90-degree turn and it practically disappears because it's so narrow. And the fast-moving water can buffet other fish, but that humpback shape allows the sockeye salmon to be stable in fast water. So take a moment now to jot down one of those body shapes. And lastly, we'll do mouth shape and feeding. The way a fish's mouth is shaped and works allows it to take advantage of different foods in its habitat. So a fish with a sucker-shaped mouth can slurp up small plants and animals. Large jaws means it can gulp prey in a single bite. The barracuda's longer jaw makes it easier to catch prey when it comes up from below. Think about that next time you're tubing. But barracudas aren't on the river, so it's okay. Duck-bill jaws allow the fish to grasp their prey. And opposite of the barracuda, the longer upper jaw is good for catching prey coming down on it from above. So now jot down one of those feeding strategies. Okay, so now we're going to have some fun. And this does not have to be fancy because we're not going to take time to be fancy. I'll give you 5 minutes. Let's see, what time is it? No, I'm going to give you 4 minutes. I'm going to give you 4 minutes, and then you have to stop work. And I want you to draw a picture of a fish that has those characteristics that you jotted down. And you can add some habitat, and you can make up a name for it and all that kind of stuff. And then at the end of your 4 minutes, we will see what you have drawn. So, okay, go. This is when we needed the 2-minute soundtrack.
I guess you're going to sing for us.
I think not. That would be very sad. You got about another minute and a half.
You could sing fish songs you know to yourself if you want.
Sea shanties.
Ooh.
Fish sea shanties.
I was singing the fins song that head, shoulders, knees, and toes, but pelvic, pectoral. Oh, it's been a while.
Excellent. Okay, I'm going to unshare my screen so that we can start looking at your drawings in a few minutes. I'll give you 1 more minute. Okay, so if you would like to share your webcam and hold your picture up so we can see what you did. Oh, I love it. Dustin and Aaron up there's up.
Oh, wow.
Wow, look, that's Miss Lopata. That's lovely. Nice ones.
Oh, I like Josh's. Well done, Josh.
Hey, Josh, you want to tell us about yours?
Oh boy. So I will preface with I am not an artiste. I am an amateur artist. So I went for the light colored belly with the contrasting top portion and the torpedo shape. And what was the last one? The duck-billed jaw.
Mm-hmm.
And I did, I'm not sure how well you can differentiate, but he's got a lot of different blue scaling on the top. And so I guess I would call him something like dazzling blue scales or something like that.
Excellent. I could tell that you'd put some extra work into his mouth parts, and I wanted to hear that. Miss Lopata, you did yours in color. You want to show us yours?
So I've got the well, it was supposed to be the Barracuda jaws, the extended lower, the modeled pattern, and this is torpedo shaped, but I like immediately forgot what that looked like as soon as I tried to do it. So I feel like it looks kind of like a dinosaur.
It does, but I love it. Well, excellent, you guys. Thanks. Does anybody else have one that I so want the rest of us to see? We got time for one more. No? Okay.
I feel like Maddie really wants to show us hers. I can tell. I could see underneath the mask.
She has that look in her eye, right?
She does. She wants to show it, I think.
Oh, thanks, guys. Yeah, I did. I wanted to do a humpback. Sorry, it's a reused paper, so there's some graphs on the back. But
Oh, that's even better.
yeah,
perfect.
so a little humpback guy with a bottom jaw elongated, and he lives at the bottom, so he was colored in the top, so dark upper. So.
Nice. Good job, you guys. All right. I'm going to share my screen again. So that was Fashion to Fish. Wait, let me get my notes back in front of me because it changes every time you do that. Come here, you. Alrighty then. Okay. To give you an idea of the detail and thought that would go into the TCEE application, here's one small chunk of what you would submit. And so, yeah, that's a lot of words on the slide. Let's break it down. So this is a little bit easier to look at. For Fashion to Fish, what kind of warm up or engage activity might you do? And in the interest of time, does someone just want to like just blurt out your ideas?
Getting a sense of like favorite fish from around the room.
Oh, nice. Talking about favorite fishes, that's a good idea for that personal like connection. Any others? We might talk if kids don't have a lot of experience with fishes personally, but maybe aquarium fish. We could talk about fish that were in aquarium. And I'm always up for having critters in the classroom or in the I even have a bed on my breakfast table. Because just having fish around makes you happy, right? Or if you had toys, stuffed animals or those little plastic toys, that kind of thing. So those kinds of things you would list that there in the describe a short activity to engage the student. For letter B, we would just write the procedure directly, summarizing what we did straight out of the Aquatic Wild book. Just those procedural steps. You wouldn't copy it, but you would like write it out. So C, D, and E. The beauty of Aquatic Wild is that the activity includes suggestions for evaluation and extensions. So, and if from the book itself, an elementary evaluation might be to use the images from the adaptation cards and ask the kids to identify which picture illustrates the different adaptations. Or for upper elementary, you might ask the students to invent an animal that was adapted to live in their community and see if they can make that logical leap of understanding of adaptations. An extension might be to find a real fish with one of the adaptations and research it further, describing the habitat and life history. And like one of the cool things about Project Wild is I didn't make those up. That was just right there in the book. So you would fill in those kinds of things. These last ones are the kind of thing that ISEAers do, like breathing. Besides your site's resources, who do you collaborate with and reference on these kinds of things? So in the case of Fashion to Fish, you might do Zoanne over at the Texas Freshwater Fisheries Center and the local angler education instructor and maybe Sea Center. For our bibliography, you would start with Aquatic Wild, but then the angler ed resources you used, any fish ID guides, maybe some websites or YouTube channels. And lastly, that inclusion and diversity element. How could you make it work for differently abled kiddos? And in this day and age, how could you make it work in a different setting? Like we're doing it here online rather than in person. You know, what if you had a hybrid sort of setting? What modifications would you make? So that's the chunk out of the lesson plan. And then there's more.
So the next part is a reflection on instruction. And just to reiterate this is all on part C of the portfolio. So when you're turning in the portfolio, you have A, B, and C. A is your contact information, personal information. B is some of the activities that I mentioned earlier, the history of environmental ed, surveys, some answers and questions and answers and stuff like that. And then C is going to be this lesson. So you can take, Kiki's giving you a great lesson. That the part that you guys just did is straight out of the portfolio. So that's something that you would fill out. And then the reflection on instruction is also included in that. So just to give you an idea of some of the questions, and you can kind of think back to the activity that you just did with Kiki. So it says, reflect upon which teaching strategies were most effective. So what do you think? You guys can just, again, blurt out if you would like to. What are some of the ways that you feel would be effective for you to take this lesson or a lesson that you do, or what were some of the things that you thought were effective that Kiki did strategy-wise to help you with the Fashion to Fish? Or if you were to take Fashion to Fish and put it into your classroom, what are some teaching strategies that you would use maybe with your students, or not classroom, with your whatever you're teaching, wherever you happen to be teaching, with whatever group of people you have to be teaching? How could you incorporate it and kind of make it into your own thing?
Dustin says a real life connection for each participant. Oh, I heard somebody saying something.
With this lesson we just did, it was really helpful to have the pictures, and maybe that seems obvious, but like it's so much easier with this online format to just like drop those slides in there. And I can see in the classroom you'd have to like, you know, get a slideshow going on the projector and it would be harder. But I feel like that's one of the ways this format works really well, is so that you can be like an elongated jaw. You don't have to imagine that. There it is right there. There's a visual. And I was thinking I generally work with younger kids, that it would also be fun to have like examples from Finding Nemo, like fish in there, that they could look at, so that they could make even more of a connection in their mind with different shapes and, you know, morphologies.
Great. Yeah. And that helps them to assimilate information with, you know, things that they're familiar with. I think that's a really great strategy. And you're right. I think we overlook this as teachers and instructors, but particularly when you're dealing with science and environmental education. The fun thing about teaching is that a lot of it teaches itself. It's incredibly fascinating. it's cool to look at pictures of fish and see adaptations. So anything like that that engages a student is certainly an effective teaching strategy. Particularly if you're practicing something like the 5E method. I mean, the first thing you want to do is engage your student, and I think that's a very effective way to do it. Going down to number 2, it's again another reflective question. And so again, you're gonna when you put your lesson into this and you do your lesson, you're gonna be answering these and thinking back upon the lesson that you taught. So it's about reflecting upon teaching strategies that were least effective. So we talked about ones that we thought worked well. Is there some ways that you think anybody here thinks that they could take a lesson like fashion a fish, or maybe another lesson that they have in mind, and things that they could improve upon or do differently in their setting with their audience that they think would be more effective or better?
I'll talk again if no one else is going to. Like I said, I immediately forgot what the torpedo shape looked like. So again, like contextually here, it would be different to do it, but like having those images still up while the kid's drawing, I feel like could have been really helpful.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah. And you know, we could have put it up in thumbnail size. In person, you would have a hard copy in front of you.
Yeah.
Right. But
like a poster or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Brian, I'm moving us on, so we'll have time.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm slow.
No, that's okay. This is the good stuff.
So describe how you excited and engaged the audience. I think we'll kind of go through that one because Ms. Lapata just talked about that. Getting them, the fish themselves are actually, something that really was engaging and talking. And Kiki, I kind of like how you introduced you're like, well, why do these fish, have these adaptations? It's not just a fashion thing or whatever. You're kind of like, oh, yeah, that's true. If you're not thinking about it from a scientific perspective, it kind of gets you, those kind of questions or scenarios kind of lead you down a path. And I think that they are quite engaging for the audience. So let's go to 4 and 5. Describe one moment when you were distracted by.
Sorry.
When you were distracted by the learner and how you handled the situation. I guess we'll jump through this one too because we weren't very distracted. But I think that this is a good one to reflect on, like parts of your lesson where maybe you hit a lull or you are able to so I think something that comes to my mind is maybe something like a differentiated instruction where you could throw something else in there for learners that maybe aren't as good at drawing fish or aren't as good with their hands or are uncomfortable sharing their artwork. Maybe you need another component to help a student, that learns differently or is more comfortable on a different level. And so maybe by doing that, you help to you don't have as many distracted learners. That could be one way to handle a situation. Do you guys have any other, I know y'all are all obviously science instructors. Do you have any other good tips for helping and redirecting distracted learner behavior during one of these kind of situations?
I think virtually you just have to roll with it. Like virtually those distracted kids, it's a struggle. It's just definitely something. And like, you don't know what's going on with those distracted kids. They're just giving them grace too.
Yeah.
Right, that's a good point. Yeah, patience goes a long way. And then I think our final question on this is, how did you incorporate the learner's prior knowledge and experience to make the topic relevant? So I'm going to kind of go through this because we're running out of time. But just remember that it's really important to link that information that you're teaching. I know all of you know this, obviously, but just to make, as humans, we care about things that are related to our lives in some way. And so, and to me, one of the biggest challenges of teaching, and one of my favorite things about teaching, has always been to get people to care. I mean, to me, being a good citizen in the world and a good environmental educator is learning to care about things and teaching other people that this is important in your life. It's a part of your life. So finding strategies where you can always take information from a lesson and incorporate it into their life experience, I think certainly makes it a much more effective lesson.
So now that we've had a chance to see how a wild activity could be used in the TAEE application, let's take a minute to think about which of your lessons would work. We will put you in random breakout rooms. Dustin, this is what I was talking about. Since there's almost 30 of us, let's go into 9 or 10 rooms. and decide which of these lessons you'd like to share with the whole group and who will describe it, and maybe explain a little bit about why you chose it. So your assignment is to go into the room with like just 2 or 3 other people and talk about a lesson that you might apply to this situation, to this program, and then decide which one you would like to share out with us, and we'll take some random sharing. And let's see, I'm going to give you 3 minutes to talk amongst yourselves. Okay, so Dustin, are you good? Oh, Danielle's doing it. All right, go. See ya. Uh-oh, Miss Lapata's all by herself in room 7. Can you move her? Oh, somebody's coming. That's okay. Never
Yeah, I was
mind.
looking at that, Kiki. There's a couple of rooms where there's just a couple, like 1 or 2 people in there. I'm trying to see if I can move them.
Yeah, like Michelle,
I'm
because
on
I'm
it.
not going to go and join her in room 8. Yeah. And Johnny's not going anywhere. But if he did, he'd be by himself.
I think I ended up by myself,
Uh-oh, that's
and
tragic.
that's okay because I'm sitting in a drive-through right now, so I was like, oh, I might actually be able to participate.
Oh,
But I have my name that I'm driving and I'm listening only, so that's okay.
I will move you, Liz, to a group that has a few people in it.
Okay, that's cool. Yay.
And then just let me know the time, Kiki, that we want people to come back, and I'll send them a message and give them a warning.
yeah, like according to my magic numbers that we didn't come out straight on. We were supposed to end them 2 minutes ago. So I'm making it up now.
Probably my fault. I probably went over, didn't I? Apologize.
No, it's okay. So let's give them a 2-minute warning now, Danielle.
Okay. I sent one that said 1, so I'll just make it a slow minute.
Okay.
I just got done packing up all our stuff from the last session and then jumped in my car. And so I've been listening the entire time. Sorry, have not been actively participating.
I appreciate that you did not draw a fish while you were driving.
Well, the draw fish thing was happening while I was still cleaning, and I thought, this isn't my space. I don't even know where the paper is. Because we weren't in our office. We were at an outdoor learning center. I'm gonna go silent because it's time to pay for my food.
Okay. Oh, hey, I can broadcast a message.
So when the clock rolls to 40, do you want me to close them out?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, they should start popping back in. I gave them the countdown.
Okay. Oh, I'm going to stop sharing so that when they come back, we'll see faces.
Oh, look at all these beautiful people. They're back.
Yes. Okay, so are they all back yet? Not yet. Still missing a few.
Like 4 seconds, the rooms will close, so people may still be having a discussion.
Yeah. Yeah, I hated to not give them long enough to talk more, but how come I only got 45 minutes? We needed an hour.
Can you go over the questions again specifically?
So what we wanted to know was what lesson that you have done might fit into this TCEE sort of scenario, and just tell us like why you picked that one. And I think everybody's back.
Thanks, Kiki. We immediately got in the room and forgot what we were supposed to be talking about. Like, what were the questions again?
So what you were supposed to be talking about was a lesson that you might actually, if you were going to do the TCEE and do your own portfolio, what lesson might you put into that template and why? So did anybody actually talk about that? Josh did.
Miranda did. Let's hear Miranda.
Okay, Miranda.
Okay, yes, we did talk about it for a couple minutes, and we decided on a program that all three of us are familiar with called Bird Beak Buffet. Yep, a lot of people are nodding their heads, and Elizabeth especially has had a lot of practice with this one, and she's used pictures to show kids pictures of birds, and then you can lay out different supplies like kitchen supplies, mostly sieves, tongs, forks, that kind of thing, and actually let kids either splash around in the water and try to pick up maybe little things in the water, or you can lay seeds on a placemat or something, plastic fish even, and just try to let the kids pick them up and associate beak adaptations with actual bird beaks. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
It happens to be a wild activity, so that makes me pretty happy. So who else did you see, Brian?
Oh, I don't see who else has their hand up. Oh, Kelly.
Sure. I think a good activity, which is another wild activity, which I feel like all the wild activities obviously fit in. But I really like Oh Dear. And I think what's really nice about Oh Dear is like you're able to, it's first of all, very low materials, if any, maybe like a rope or just chalk to draw a line, but on a board, but low material use, but also I like the idea of bringing in modeling. So kids are playing a game, which is really great, but if you can get them to think of it less about a game and winning and losing and more about modeling a system, I feel like that, first of all, that's a huge success to get in the mind of like, oh, we're modeling something and it doesn't matter. You know, I like to convince kids that they want to die in the game because it tells us more interesting things. But I think that one fits in. And I think it's cool because it's very active. And they're moving their bodies, but they're also, then you're looking at, you have the math aspect at the end with graphing. So I like how interdisciplinary it is, pulls a lot of stuff. And I feel like if you didn't want to do deer, you can change it to something more applicable towards your area or interest based on what you're learning. And so there's a lot of ways to like modify it to be engaging for whatever group you're working in. And you can make it, you know, so many environmental topics you can talk about as well, and just more challenging. Like, I think it's really easy to adapt for different grade levels too. So I like that one a lot.
Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for picking it up, another wild one. But you can kind of see how that would really actually work. And I guess our point to give you that time to talk was to sort of see if you could personalize the process of TCEE, and it's not just something that like somebody else might do with their thing, but you could do it yourself. So We are about out of time. If you have any questions about TCEE, don't hesitate to contact Brian. And if you have any questions about Project Wild, like if you've never played Oh Dear, contact me. And with that, that's it. Did you have anything else you wanted to say, Brian?
Yeah, just please don't be intimidated by the portfolio. If you guys have any questions at all, email me, get in contact with me. This is something that everybody can do. It's not anything that any of y'all can't do. I can tell just from the lesson ideas that you guys had some great information, and I really, really look forward to hopefully getting to work with you guys. So come do it.
Oh, one other thing I wanted to say is that there have been groups that got together like as study groups and
Right.
did it as a team. And then you keep each other honest and you keep each other on track. And actually it would be super fun. So don't feel like you have to do it by yourself. All right. Well, thank you guys.
Thanks.